Hello everybody, I am Crystal Clear 101. Welcome back to my channel. We have a Transformers toy review, and today it is the Transformers Generations Combiner Wars Leader Class Starscream. Now this figure was released in late 2015. He is a general release, and his suggested retail is $44.99. Now let's look over the packaging. We have the Transformers logo here, Generations logo in the top right corner, along with the Combiner Wars logo, along with the name of the character right down here, as well as a very cool shot, some cool artwork of Starscream right there above the Combiner Wars logo. And on the reverse side of the packaging, we have a very cool shot of Starscream in his robot mode, as well as a very good shot of Starscream's alternate mode, which to me looks like a cross between a F-15 and an F-22. It looks weird, but it looks really cool. It also states that he converts in 16 steps, as well as a brief description about the character itself in multiple languages. The English portion of it reads, Starscream commands one of the most fearsome military units from Cybertron, the Seekers. The squadron has brought him great power and glory, but that means nothing as long as Megatron is the one who rules the Decepticons. Until Starscream can claim that throne, he will have to be content to be king of the Seekers. And there's the three other languages if you want to pause that and read that. And on this side of the packaging, we have the Combiner Wars logo, along with some really cool artwork of Starscream wearing the Coronation Crown. Well, that does it for the packaging for the Combiner Wars Leader Class Starscream. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this figure out, and let's see just how decent he really is. Now, before we do take a look at the figure itself, I figured we'd go ahead and take a look at the little collector card that it comes with. Now, first off, it does feature the artwork of the character itself. Now, unlike one Combiners War figure that I have in my possession right now, this card actually does feature the likeness of the character it's supposed to represent. I mean, you can tell this is the Combiner Wars Starscream just from the artwork. It has the name right down there. The reverse side just got the Transformers Generations logo. I mean, it's just a real simple piece of cardboard, but the fact that it does come with a little collector's card, I think is pretty nice. I mean, it's just an extra little something. And as far as the figure itself is concerned, now here is Leader Class Starscream out of the packaging. Let's go ahead and get a better look at this figure. First off, a full 360 of the figure. Now, as many of you know, I am a Starscream nut. When it comes to Starscream, I have to have Starscream. Now, as far as what I like and what I don't like about the figure, let me go ahead and tell you some basics. Number one, this is a repaint of the Combiner Wars Thundercracker, which was a retooling of Generations Jetfire. Now, since they've done Starscream, they are doing Skywarp, and once Skywarp is released, I plan on having all three to complete my Seekers. Now, he features all the same weapons as Thundercracker, and for that matter, the same weapons as Jetfire. Only Starscream and Thundercracker don't have the extra armor pieces like Jetfire does. Now, as you can see, he comes loaded to the teeth. He comes with these little small guns, basically little small null rays. He comes with these two large guns, which are essentially his basically full-size null rays, as well as these two little lead cannons, which also function as additional armor, as well as a handheld missile launcher, which has a firing missile. But the one thing that will set this apart from the Thundercracker is he does come with one more accessory. Yes, he comes with the crown. He comes with the Coronation Crown. Now, this is removable. The one thing I will point out is that this portion of his crown, which does have an indentation, a little notch right in here, goes over this little notch in his head. Now, I have found this to be a little tricky to get in, but the easy way is to slip that in first, then rock it back in. Then after that, his crown goes on. Now, if I remember right, I think these other guns you can combine with this one to make an even larger, ridiculously bigger gun. If I remember what way it is that it goes, then I will show that. But for now, let's go ahead and remove some of these additional weapons. But this version of Starscream was actually based on his appearance from the Combiner Wars Comet series. Matter of fact, just from his appearance in one of the covers, I am going to reduce him down to his main weapons. The main weapons he's seen with. Which are, in fact, these two big guns. And even though these are very large, like very large guns, there is one thing I absolutely do like about these. I actually like about these better than I do these little small ones. Which is, if you look at how this is cut out, along with his shoulder, this is actually cut out so that, yes, you can bring up the null ray. And if you want, yes, you can have him basically pointing his null ray, which I think is absolutely sweet, absolutely sick. I mean, yeah, it's not a masterpiece figure, but the fact that you can bring up his arm with a full-size null ray and it doesn't interfere with the shoulder, that is absolutely sweet. The articulation on him is pretty good. I mean, he does have some pretty good posability. And for a Transformer, it's pretty good. Now, if I have to give any complaints about the figure, I guess the main complaint I can really give is that some of his colors, mainly the gray, which is what this figure mainly is a little bland. It really is a little bland. But then again, I'm thinking of Generation 1 Starscream when he was more of a white color. This figure is more in keeping with the IDW comics, which I think is also pretty neat. I've heard some people complain about how he doesn't have the little extra bits that go up right and down through here, like a traditional Starscream. That doesn't bother me as much, considering that they're for the most part replaced with the afterburners right back here, his thrusters. So that, for me, doesn't bother me too much. The fact that the wings cannot be, turned around so this is facing this way. Again, for me, that doesn't bother me too much. Because when I show you his transformation in just a minute, when you see his jet mode, which to me looks like a cross between a F-15 and an F-22, it looks cool. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and get straight to his transformation real quick. Now, to start off with his transformation, first off, it helps to go ahead and strip him of all his weapons, and of course the Coronation Crown. Now, to start off the transformation, first, it helps to go ahead and separate the shoulders from both the chest and the wings. Go ahead and rotate the head 180 degrees. And bring his head and his chest down here. Next, the arms, we're going to rotate this way 90 degrees. Then, simply bring both up this way. Now, for both arms, there's going to be a peg and a peg hole on both respective arms. Simply line both of them up. You'll hear them click into place. The arms are simply going to be resting right down here. Now, for the legs, go ahead and fold them up and tuck them in like so. One little feature I figure I will go ahead and point out, which I think is neat, which is if you check out the bottom of Starscream's feet, you'll find there's actually a pair of thrusters on the bottom of each heel, which I think is neat. Just a little tidbit I figured I'd point out. But anyway, then we rotate the legs like so, where we see the landing gear. Now when you do this part, do it at the hip. Don't do it at the legs, do it right at the base of the hip. And this is how you want to see the legs tucked, with these bottom portions down here are tucked in inside the shoulders. Next, we're going to move the nose section. We're going to bring the tail section up. Now these notches right here will simply go into these peg holes in the shoulder. They will simply tab into place. Then these pads will simply go into these peg holes in the wings. The best part is they will, when they're lined up, they will be nice and snug. Alright. Now, for the nose section, this is probably the trickiest part of the transformation. But we're going to go ahead and flip up these pieces right here. Now this part is a little tight. You'll know you're doing it right if this goes up smoothly, because these hip pieces will interfere with it going up. There we go. Then these simply tab into place. Then the nose section simply comes down. Matter of fact, it should peg into place. There we go. Then simply bring up the vertical stabilizers. You can then bring down his nose gear. He already has his landing gear down here. And there we go. We have Starscream in his alternate mode. And now let's get a better look at that alternate mode. Well, first off, here it is in all its glory. Now, as I stated, this is, to me, looks like a mix between an F-15 and an F-22. The wings make me think F-15. The nose makes me think F-22. Now, as far as the vertical stabilizers are concerned, I mean, you can have them more or less straight up if you want to go for that G1-ish look. Or you can have them like so for the more modern look, for a more IDW look. As I say, this is based on the IDW version of the character. Now, if I have to give any complaints about this alternate mode, any at all, I guess my only real complaint is the colors on him are a bit dull. I mean, it's not the most colorful Starscream that I've seen. But to a small extent, the colors are still kind of eye-catching. It's just not going to stand out as well as some other Starscreams I've fooled with. Now, as I said, because he is a repaint of Thundercracker, who was a retool of Jetfire, And considering all the various weapons he does come with, you can arm him up if you want to. Now, just to give an idea what Starscream looks like with all these guns. Oops, trying to put it on the wrong spot. Once more, with feeling. There we go. Now, it is in Starscream's nature to try and one-up Megatron by showing him that he can take on multiple multiple Autobots to Megatron's typical one. And what better way than to show Starscream's ego than by arming him to the teeth with guns. As we can see right here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guns. If you don't include the 2 Vulcans right here. If you include those, then there's 9. But attached, there are 7 guns to this guy. And I think this is the most heavily armed I've ever seen a Starscream. That is the most heavily armed Starscream I have ever seen. I mean, if I had to give any complaints about this, the only complaint I can honestly give you is that the trigger for this missile launcher is on a hair trigger. And a couple of times I have had this attached in jet mode. Whenever I've done the movement around, this will collapse. This would barely touch on the trigger and cause the missile to shoot. I mean, give you an idea how much of a hair trigger mine has. I barely pushed that. And it launched. So, I mean, if you don't want to have that under the nose, then, you know, that looks fine. I mean, I think that still looks fairly cool for Starscream. For a heavily armed Starscream. So, if you don't mind the colors being a little drab on him, if you don't mind, well, at least in the case of my example, the missile launcher being on a hair trigger, then you'll probably like this alt mode rather well. I mean, like I said, it's a mix between an F-15 and an F-22. I like it. It looks weird, but I like it. And one more detail before I do forget. Yes, this has an opening canopy, which does have a faux cockpit. It shows that there are 2 seats. I think that looks cool. The fact you can still open the cockpit, I think that's really cool. That's something that most other Starscreams can't even do. But that is it. There is Starscream's alternate jet mode. Now, some I figured I'd go ahead and show a little comparison of, just because I thought it was interesting, is how the Leader Class Starscream does bear some resemblance to the little Legends Class Starscream that came out back in 2013. Now, I'm just wanting to show like some of the similarities between the two, considering these are both IDW versions of the same character. I mean, some of the parts that are virtually just about identical, honestly, are like the chest piece. Granted, this shows like a 2-section canopy versus a 1-section. Now, the head is also fairly similar. However, while Starscream has these traditional little bits right up here, on the Leader Class, they're replaced with the thrusters. Even the little chest section where the turbines are just about identical. They're just about the same. Not to mention the waist is just about the same, just a little more detail on the Leader Class. The shoulder pieces are exactly the same. The arm structure is virtually the same. Just about even the null ray is exactly the same, from the little fin right here, the fin here, back here, right down to the little split at the muzzle for the null ray. Now the legs are virtually identical from the shape to the knee piece right here, the little blue bit right here. Granted this is shaped a little differently. The primary obvious difference, honestly, is going to be the feet, whereas this is more triangular versus this being more squared. Not to mention that even though this actually the wings actually face front to actually show the Decepticon emblem, it's funny how the wing decals are just about the same. They're virtually the same, only this has a white background versus a silver background for the Decepticon emblem. So, I mean, if you were to ask me, this is like an upscale, a Leader Class version of this, which I think is sweet. But whether it is or not, I personally don't know. But, I mean, that was just a little observation I noticed. Now, as far as the jet mode for these two is concerned, let's take an even better look at that. And as far as the comparisons in jet mode, let's get a better look. Now, with like a few exceptions, these two have a very similar alt mode. Now, the primary differences that I can really point out between the two, as far as the alt mode is concerned, is like this portion of the design right here, where the air intakes would be, as well as the vertical stabilizers. I mean, they're just two completely different designs. Other than that, the nose section is very similar. The wings, for the most part, are exactly the same. Only other difference I can really point out is that this portion for where the thrusters would be, these are more pronounced on the Legends class than they are on the Leader class. I mean, they're not as noticeable. I mean, you can feel them if you run your finger across them, but they're just not as noticeable as they are on the little Legends class. But other than that, from the front, they look very similar. I mean, overall, the two alt modes, they look very similar. But considering I had this in my possession, I figured I'd do a quick little comparison since the two of them look very similar. But that's it for the comparison between the little Legends class and the Leader class. Now for some size comparisons of the Combiner Wars Leader Class Starscream in his robot mode. Here he is next to the Combiner Wars Leader Class Megatron and the X-Transbots MX-1 Apollyon. Weapons and accessories for the Combiner Wars Leader Class Starscream include a handheld missile launcher with launching missile, a pair of small guns acting as small null rays, one pair of large guns acting as his standard size null rays, one pair of leg-mounted cannons also acting as armor, and last but most certainly not least, his Coronation Crown, which is reminiscent of his Coronation Crown that he wore briefly in the 1986 animated movie. And articulation for the Generations Combiner Wars Leader Class Starscream consists of a swivel hinge head, swivel hinge shoulders with a ratcheting joint, swivel biceps, hinged elbows, swivel wrists, swivel hinge hips with a ratcheting joint, swivel thighs, hinged knees, and double hinged ankles. And overall, what are my thoughts on the Generations Combiner Wars Leader Class Starscream? Well, as a Starscream fan, I actually do rather enjoy this figure. I mean, the last Leader Class Starscream came out before this was the one for the Hunt for the Decepticons line back in 2010, and that was a Leader Class version of the movie Starscream. But to actually have a Leader Class version of a G1-ish Starscream, I think it's actually pretty sweet. Yeah, granted, this is just a repaint of Thundercracker that comes with the Coronation Crown. Even though I don't personally care for the shade of gray that this character is mostly molded in, I think it still looks good. I just wish it would have been color-wise a little closer to his G1 self. But as I stated earlier, this is based on the IDW version of the character, so I'm not going to complain too much. But bottom line is, if you like Starscream, if you can find this figure, I would consider getting him. But he's still not a bad figure. He's still very decent overall. But this will wrap up my review on the Transformers Generations Combiner Wars Leader Class Starscream. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.